What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with Ryan Hallam, and this is another edition of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. Ryan, for a second, I thought I got the wrong title of the show. You were nodding, you were shaking your head no, but I'm just guessing you were shaking your head because of the bloodbath of injuries that we faced during week 2 of the fantasy football season. And I don't want to say this for all those that believe in jinxes, but week 2 isn't over yet. Can it get much worse than this, Ryan Hallam?
But we already don't have Michael Thomas tonight, so I don't know how much worse it can get. But, oh, my, I feel bad. Our own Sean Mitchell, who writes the injury report for Fantasy Alarm, I feel really bad for him. It's going to be a very lengthy article this week, and not only lengthy, but huge fantasy impact. So if you got through, I think I tweeted at some point yesterday, is anyone going to make it through this week unscathed? It was just star after star went down. I think the waiver wire is going to be very popular, and many people, I think, were crying in their beers last night.
Absolutely. And let's start with Saquon Barkley. Torn ACL, out for the season. Now, a lot of people are going to go by what they saw because they are in panic mode right now. And before we even talk about who to pick up off of the waiver wire, Ryan, and I want to get your take, and I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'll never sell you BS. I'm real. That's who I am. But I really do believe that even though you may have lost Saquon Barkley, that doesn't mean your season is over, Ryan. And I feel like people take their first round picks and say, this player must get 25 to 30 points and a half-point PPR. Otherwise, he is garbage. And that's not true. You have to lower your expectations. There will be some matchups when your first round pick, i.e. Saquon Barkley from week 1, doesn't have a lot of success. A lot of you that I actually spoke to on Twitter were ready to drop him or trade him for 50 cents on the dollar after what happened against Pittsburgh, Ryan.
Yeah, we deal with a lot of overreaction, I'll say, here between Twitter and our chat rooms and things like that. I didn't quite see anyone going that far down, but I totally believe that you heard that. It's being week 2. There is time, like you said. I mean, there's going to be guys who still break out. There's going to be more injuries. Let's not sugarcoat this. This isn't the last one. The problem with Barkley is, for me, is there's not someone behind him that's going to make up the slack. I mean, Dion Lewis had 10 carries for 20 yards. He was a decent pass-catching back 4 years ago. I think he was just the guy they had on their roster, figuring that Barkley was going to be fine. I think the Giants are going to be going to the waiver wire with everyone else. I don't see them going the year with Wayne Gallman and Dion Lewis. I saw reports Devonta Freeman was at least there for a visit, and I think that's a real good chance that he finally finds a team, and that's where we see Freeman land with New York.
And that's where you have to be careful when you're spending. A lot of people spend 60% of their budget on Nyheim Hines. Look what they got out of Nyheim Hines. I'm not saying
Benny Snell. Look at Benny Snell too.
So here's the deal with you just really pissed me off by bringing up Benny Snell. You really pissed me off because here's the deal with Benny Snell. With Hines, you couldn't really see it. You're like, okay, Taylor will get a little bit more, but Hines will still be able to produce. You saw James Conner not elevating his ankle after he hurt it. He was walking up and down the sidelines. What made you think, outside of a report that came out before game time from Ian Rappaport of all people, that it was going to be maybe a 50-50 split with carries? Besides that report, I don't understand why people thought when James Conner was practicing in full that all of a sudden Benny Snell was going to lead this team in carries. It made no sense. It's asinine.
Yeah, and you can talk about Ian Rappaport all you want. Let's go to Mike Tomlin, the coach, who said when James Conner is healthy, he's our guy. He's our bell cow. That comes from the coach, who, by the way, has basically had that philosophy his entire time with the Steelers. They don't really spread it around in Pittsburgh. One guy gets it the vast majority of the time. The problem that I think that people have is they're always worried, because this has happened several times, especially last year, that Conner starts a game and can't finish it because of injury. And I understand that. That sucks if he comes in for 6 carries and then hurts himself and he's done for the rest of the game. But you have to be reasonable and sensible, and I don't think you can try to predict an injury. If he practiced in full all week, the coach obviously likes him. The coach said he's the man if he's out there. He's going to be started. I saw Howard tweeted something, some sort of like gif of like, haha, you guys all wanted to sit James Conner. When Conner is healthy,
I got
he's
that
the man.
question, Ryan, if I could interrupt. I got that question way too much. Do I start Benny Snell or James Conner? And I get it that replying with one-word answers, it doesn't give you the comfort that you need sometimes. Sometimes you need that extra sentence or two of analysis. But to me, there wasn't much I can say without insulting you when you were asking me that on Twitter, because I get the paranoia. I understand it. But James Conner was practicing. He wasn't off the sidelines in the locker room, elevating and icing when it happened. They had a comfortable enough lead. Pace the game was going, the game flow, and also Benny Snell was dominant. So why not? Why risk it with James Conner at this point? But going into this week, he was deemed healthy, 0 limitations, meaning that it was an ankle tweak, not like what we're seeing with Michael Thomas and Jimmy Garoppolo with these crazy high ankle sprains and Christian McCaffrey with the high ankle sprains that are 4 to 6 week injuries. And you don't need to be a doctor to figure that out. You need to have your head in the news cycle just a little bit and say, hey, look, Conner has been practicing in full for the last 2 days. He's ready to go. I'm starting him. I drafted him in the 3rd or 4th round even the 3rd or 2nd round for some even. Why not start him?
Yeah, it wasn't like he had a bad matchup either. It just, you're right. Everything made sense. I think sometimes, and it's funny because obviously at Fantasy Alarm, and you guys are all subscribers and everything, obviously we want to give you as much access to us as possible. But sometimes I think that kind of works against people because I think it really forces them to overthink things, and they can always just ask us quick questions, which of course we appreciate everything that everyone coming in the chat rooms and Twitter and our live streams and everything like that. I think sometimes it might add a little paranoia to the scene.
Well, it's because you know why? It's a lot of these questions aren't as easy as, oh yeah, go with this guy and that's it. No, we want to, as analysts, be able to explain our thought process. And if you don't like our thought process, we could be wrong. You could be right. There you go. There's no guarantee, but there's a difference when you're asking us for advice and you're constantly arguing every one of our points. Well, this is our opinion at the end of the day. You clearly know what you're doing. Start your guy.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is advice. It's not, the end, be all end all. I've been wrong plenty of times. If I give you advice and you don't necessarily agree with it, go with your gut.
I mean, Ryan, speak for yourself. I'm never wrong. I'm just not wrong about that. I'll tell you that much. Ryan, let's talk about spending, because now not only do we have Saquon Barkley, who is out for the rest of the season, but we have Christian McCaffrey, who is now out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So when looking to spend on running backs, because we talked about some of the big spending players that didn't come through in week 2 that were very productive in week 1. Talk about guys like Nyheim Hines, especially. Now going into this waiver period, how much of your budget, because I'm not going to tell you, Ryan, because it is in the Stock Watch for Fantasy Alarm, how much I would spend, but I want to ask you, how much of your waiver budget, if you are in dire need of a running back, would you spend on Gallman and or Lewis?
Not very much. I would say less than 10%.
Really? You're not getting either one with less than 10%.
I don't think either one's going to succeed. I mean, Gallman had plenty of chances last year when Barkley was hurt. He stinks. Like I said, Dion Lewis is over the hill and was never really all that great. I mean, he had like a 60-catch guy, but he's not going to carry the ball 20 times. The Giants are going to get somebody, whether it's Devonta Freeman or someone else. I can't see them going the rest of the year with Gallman and maybe. I mean, they went for a while last year, but Barkley wasn't out for the year last year. It was a high ankle sprain. This is the rest of the season. And I don't think they have aspirations of the playoffs, but it's pretty hard to just wave in the towel with just garbage at a pretty important skill position 2 weeks into the year. I got to believe they're going to get somebody else.
I just find it funny that when we finally get the entire Giants team on the field, nope, we can't have nice things.
No, Sterling Shepard went out too. I think he's got turf toe. Yeah. He's going to miss a couple weeks.
Week 1, Golden Tate was out, so we didn't have the full team then. Week 2, we finally have what seems to be everybody, and boom, we lose 2 players, including the most impactful player on that offense. Now, for those, Hallam, that do want to invest in Gallman and Lewis, here's my argument when it comes to Wayne Gallman. He can do what Dion Lewis does in the passing game. Gallman has 60 receptions in his career. So he is more powerful of a runner than Lewis also, in my opinion. So I would give the edge Gallman over Lewis. Now, what's the max I would spend on my budget if I lost Saquon and I had a really, really cruddy running back core like I do, let's just say, in the Sirius XM hosts league, where now my leading running back after losing Barkley and Marlon Mack. It's one of those leagues. I lost Barkley, Marlon Mack. I'm now stuck with like Chase Edmonds and Devin Singletary and Malcolm Brown at this point. Then I'm going to look to spend about 25 to 30% of my budget on Gallman. I'll put less than that on Lewis. I'll put about, I don't know, 12 to 15% maybe. I got to evaluate all other options. But then there's Mike Davis. And people are already asking, Ryan, do you put the bid if you have for those that play in waiver priority? Why? I have no idea. For those that do play with waiver priority that have number one claims and want to spend it on either Mike Davis or one of the Giants' backs, I told them to go with Davis. What would you choose?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going there. I think Davis, he's not very good either. But I do think he's got a better chance at success. The Panthers' offense has looked pretty good the first couple of weeks. They haven't played exactly, bang up defenses yet. But at least he's had some success in the past. I mean, mild at best. But they've got to do something. And I think I don't see them going out and getting anyone. I think they're going to roll with him and Cannon and get the best out of them. So I think Mike Davis has a better chance of, season-long success than either Lewis or Gallman. A season-long, McCaffrey's not out for the year, but I mean, this 4 to 6 weeks is a pretty good chunk of time. That's like a third of the season.
Right. He could be a bridge builder. That's what I call it. Just someone that can fill the gap for a few weeks. McCaffrey comes back, or can fill the gap for a week or two until that next big name player becomes available on the waiver wire. Get last year out of your heads. I get it. My teams sucked when they lost Kerryon Johnson, and having Devonta Freeman was no help. Had that combination on the majority of my teams. But this is not last year. This year is going to bring a lot more ailments, especially with COVID, which we haven't seen take its course yet on the league, thank God. But true if you're superstitious. But at the same time, you have to remember, this is a new year. You are going to be able to find running backs on that waiver wire. And it's going to be someone new every single week. I'm sure a lot of you are kicking yourselves for spending $60 to $70 out of $100 for Nyheim Hines of all people. So that's where you have to be careful with how you spend your budget. And how you wanted to say something, I'm guessing, regarding Hines. Do you feel like that he has more value and worth than what we saw in week 2?
No, well, I do think he'll do better than he did in week 2, but it was more of the lines of, this is why I wouldn't spend so much on Gallman or Dion Lewis or even Mike Davis, because I do think someone better will come along the way. I know it might suck, and that's why I wouldn't spend a lot. If I get Wayne Gallman for $5, all right, I'll take him as a bridge. If I got to spend $25, I'm not doing that. I want to save that extra $20 when I think someone more impactful might come on the waiver wire.
The problem is we can't predict that, though. That's the other side of this, and that's what's bad is that yes, I try to save 30 to 35% of my budget for that playoff run and the playoffs. But if I'm not in it and I'm losing guys like Barkley, I have to be more open because we can't predict injuries. That's the other side of this, Ryan, that makes it very difficult. And that's why when you're saying you're only going to spend $10 on Gallman, he's going to go for a lot more than that. Let me tell you, I can only imagine whether or not, you ready for this, Brian? I can only imagine whether or not he hits $400 out of 1,000. That's what I'm wondering. I bet you he'll hit that mark.
Ugh. Well, it doesn't mean it's right. But yeah, I'm sure someone's going to panic, especially someone who had Barkley. But I'm telling you, just look at the guys, years past. The Giants' offensive line is a little bit better, but it's still not good. I think they're going to throw the ball more. And I still think Devonta Freeman will be there in a couple days.
Well, that'll just clog up everything else.
Which, by the way, I would spend more on Freeman, but I don't expect him to be very good either.
Right.
He's washed up. I mean, he hasn't been able to do very much, injury after injury, just because even if he comes in and y'all are picking him up, he's better, but I'm still not excited about Devonta Freeman.
Yeah, also, how much are the Giants willing to pay? Because hasn't the problem been with Freeman that the numbers financially haven't added up to his favor? I think that's been the problem because he's met with half the league at this point, hasn't been able to be signed. I mean, that says something right there. So, and also, and I agree with you, I think he's washed up, and I don't think he brings anything else to the table, and certainly don't think that he's a league winner, at least at this point, until I'm proven wrong. I mean, Ryan, let's talk about some of the other running backs that went down. Oh, you want to piss me off even more, Ryan? Your 49ers, they really pissed me off. I don't know what to do with this team, man. I mean, now Mostert goes down the MCL, and at this point, you would think, okay, good thing I drafted Tevin Coleman, right? Wrong, because he's not really doing anything with his yardage, and I'm willing to give him a little bit of a break. But my question is to you, Ryan. Jerick McKinnon, does he have standalone value the rest of the way with this squad?
Yeah, for sure. I think even when Mostert comes back, I mean, he's shown a lot the first 2 weeks. As long as he can stay healthy, he's shown bursts that I haven't seen since he was in Minnesota. Clearly, Kyle Shanahan likes to throw him the ball out of the backfield, and when he gets the ball, he's doing great things with it, and he's really fast. And if they get him in space at all whatsoever, he's making something happen. Let's be honest, their wide receivers are all banged up. George Kittle's all banged up. So guess who's getting the ball thrown to him? It's Jordan Reed and it's Jerick McKinnon.
It's not Brandon Ayuk, I'll tell you that much.
It wasn't Brandon Ayuk. He had one catch that I think was intended for Kendrick Bourne, and he just happened to run in front of him and catch it, which was good. It was for a first down and all, but I don't know if he needs some more time. I mean, he's coming back off an injury too. The whole team's kind of falling apart. Nick Mullins is going to be quarterbacking because, we talked to Jimmy Garoppolo's a high ankle sprain. That's going to cost him probably a month. So, the whole Niners offense is kind of a mess at the moment. But yeah, I mean, McKinnon, they got to do something. They're not playing great defenses. They got the Giants this coming week, whose defense is terrible. They got Philly the following week, whose defense is terrible. So even with this compromised lineup, I still think a few guys will be okay. Nick Mullins isn't a garbage backup quarterback. He started 8 games a few years ago when Garoppolo tore his ACL, and he's all right. He's not fantasy relevant, really. Maybe low end.
He keeps some of these players fantasy relevant.
Yes.
Or, let me start over. Make some of these players fantasy relevant.
Yeah, I think he's good enough that you're not just trashing everybody in the team. Samuel will hopefully be back in a couple weeks. Kittle hopefully isn't too far off. I saw he's probable for this coming week. So hopefully getting a few weapons back will help out as well.
Yeah, I'm not even going to ask you this question. You know what? I am going to ask you for the fun of it. I feel like I read a report maybe a week or two before the season that Jordan Reed could still carve out his own role in this offense, even with a healthy Kittle. And that just makes me wonder after seeing what we saw. By the way, Ryan, I didn't know if you knew this or not. I don't know why I was looking up these weird stats. I'm just a weird dude like that. Jordan Reed, and this is why I almost started him everywhere in DFS. Jordan Reed had never played the Jets in his career.
I did not know that.
Before I noticed that because shocker, because he's hurt half his life, the year that Washington played the Jets in his career, he was out for a good portion of the year. So I noticed that I'm like, Jets have never seen this guy really before. Maybe start him. And then I felt that, okay, I can't only go with that narrative. What does it mean? What do you think about Jordan Reed moving forward? Because I'm not rushing to pick him up or anything like that. Just makes me wonder about his outlook, considering we haven't seen much from the other receivers.
Yeah, I think right now in this little vacuum, I think he's going to have some value until the team gets somewhat healthy, until Samuel's back to 100%, until Ayuk is a little more, up to speed. He looked great yesterday. I mean, he not only made the catch, but he made a couple of nice moves. One touchdown, he kind of danced over a couple guys, and you can't. I got to believe with what my eyes saw. And so right now, until he, gets hurt, which inevitably history tells us he will, he is fantasy relevant. At least, especially like we talk about maybe about the fishbowl where you can play 2 tight ends or you have the tight end extra scoring. But right now, tight end has been pretty good. There's been some guys. Hawkinson has definitely stepped up. Noah Fant has been pretty good, although he lost his quarterback. It might be only certain leagues where Reed is startable. Maybe if you lost Kittle, but he's at least showing enough right now that maybe for the next 2 or 3 weeks he could do something for you.
And you mentioned Denver. Let's talk about them because with Cortland Sutton, the reports of the tearing of the knee and everything done for the year. Man, Ryan, at this point, because let's recap with what's gone on. Phillip Lindsay is hurt. Yep. Cortland Sutton was hurt going into the year and then hurt a different part of his body. Not a good look. Hamler was banged up going into the year. At this point, even Jerry Jeudy, he got hit pretty hard. Is it Noah Fant or bust with this team? Do you believe in Driscoll?
He is not horrible. He's not going to be Nick Folk. Or no, who was that guy? Nick Falk or whoever quarterback for the Jets last year when Darnold had mono. That guy couldn't throw the ball 2 inches in front of his face. So he's not that bad. I mean, he's okay. He played for the Lions last year a little bit before he got hurt after Stafford went down. I mean, you're right. It's Judy. Tim Patrick is okay.
We're at this point already with this team.
But yeah, it's no Fant right now, and Melvin Gordon, and we'll see what Driscoll can do. It's a pretty ugly situation there as well.
By the way, I almost convinced someone to trade me Melvin Gordon for Marvin Jones. I pitched it perfectly because Kenny Galladay's been dealing with his hamstring injury. So I pitched it perfectly. And then sometimes they say he who hesitates is lost. But sometimes being patient and holding off for a week, especially when you haven't seen any form of consistency, is the smarter move. And now I'd much rather be the Gordon owner.
Yeah, with Lindsey missing a few weeks, it certainly seems like his fantasy value is a little bit better. He did better than I expected him to do yesterday. With a tough matchup. I still don't love Gordon. I drafted him, in my earlier drafts before I kind of soured on him a little bit, but opportunity is there for him, and we'll see if they can get anything out of the pass game to take some of the defensive pressure off of him.
Yeah, it's just wild, Ryan. And I've been asking on Twitter at Fantasy Sports, by the way, who are you considering dropping? And some of the response I've been getting is just frightening. I don't want to spoil the show by mentioning it. So instead, Ryan, we're not out of week 2 yet. Still got one whole game to go. And as you pointed out before, no Michael Thomas. And by the way, those who were depending on Michael Thomas to be playing, what were you thinking? Why put yourself in a position at this point? He's playing on Monday night. That's risky alone. I get it. Who doesn't want Michael Thomas in their lineup? We had, just because he wasn't officially ruled out, we had no rhyme or reason to think that this guy was playing. High ankle sprain? Come on, are you seeing how long some of these other players that are hurt now are out for because of that? No way. And by the way, and I don't remember if we talked about this or not, Ryan, before, but if you are a Michael Thomas owner, you want him sitting those few weeks. Yep. I don't want a half-effective Michael Thomas where he becomes Ken Guard Mike, doesn't produce at a high level. I'd rather get him back, even after the bye, let's just say, and roll with him at 100% as I lead my playoff charge.
Absolutely. I was watching the 49ers game yesterday, and you can tell the play that Garoppolo got hurt. And you see him out there, and he's still playing, and each time he gets hit, he's limping a little bit more. And I'm screaming at the television, get him out of this game. We don't need him to beat the Jets. Like, this is just going to lead to something worse. And I'll give him credit for toughing it out and getting it to halftime when it was 21-3. But, I mean, you could tell that he just was deteriorating as the game went on. And that would be the same thing with Thomas if he tries to fight his way back. We saw it with Saquon Barkley last year, trying to come back too early. He just wasn't the same guy. So, yes, if you're a Michael Thomas owner, at least want him out 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to feel a little bit better about that. He can come back and be effective, because forcing a high ankle sprain is a bad idea.
Yeah, one more Niners question for you, by the way, I wanted to ask, because I do own this guy in a lot of leagues. Tevin Coleman. I mean, we saw him get the carries, but didn't do much with them. I mean, I feel like, Ryan, at this point, I can't even flex Tevin Coleman, even with the injury to Mostert, unless, please talk me into it, because I'm trying to figure out what to do, because between him and someone like a Tariq Cohen, I feel like I'm uncomfortable flexing those guys.
Well, I feel like he's got a little bit better chance if Mostert is out, and we haven't seen any timetable on Mostert yet. In the MCL, he could possibly play this week. At least for the next couple of weeks, the Giants and the Eagles, neither one of them are good defense. And to me, Coleman is a little different. Like, Mostert is the home run hitter. He's already had 2 huge touchdowns, and he had a third, but it was called back for holding yesterday. It was a 67-yarder called back for holding yesterday. Coleman is more of the guy who needs reps to get into the game, where Mostert can just go out 80 yards. Coleman is more the grinder. He needs 10, 12, 15 carries to get into the groove. So if Mostert is out, Coleman, you'd think, would get that. They're not going to hand the ball to McKinnon that many times when he's kind of fragile as well. So if Mostert misses some time, I feel better about Coleman. He's definitely still a pass catcher, although McKinnon will get more. So I do feel all right about Coleman the next couple weeks with plus matchups if Mostert is out of there, just because he's almost sure to get more volume than he's been getting.
Yep, we also saw, by the way, Devontae Adams go out after having just 3 receptions on 3 targets with a hamstring injury. And this is very interesting, Hallam, because this wouldn't be the first time we've seen Adams go out, and we've seen him try to play through injuries as well. But you and I have talked about these players before. Now I'm giving even more of a look, and I grabbed him in a decent amount of my leagues. But with Adams, he's missing, let's just say, if he misses even 1 week, all of a sudden, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Allen Lazard, they get bumped up a little bit more. Should get more targets out of that.
Yeah, I'm an Allen Lazard guy out of the two. Valdez-Scantling is kind of like the big play and hope he catches it kind of guy, where Lazard is a little more of the reliable short, route, better hands kind of guy. So I would go Lazard if Adams is going to miss time. I mean, he missed time last year, and Valdez-Scantling didn't really do very much while he was out. So I bet he's off to a pretty good start this year. So again, I got to trust my eyes, what I'm watching. He's doing better. I've seen him drop a couple, but it's not like it's nearly as bad as last year. So yeah, right now the Packers pass offense is doing well. They played 2 cupcakes with the Vikings and the Lions, so take that into consideration as well. It wasn't exactly the Rams and the Ravens.
Right.
We'll see. Yeah, if I had to go one way, I'd go Lazard. He is on a few of my teams. I've drafted him. I think the guy's pretty decent as an end of the roster kind of dart throw that you might have to throw in. And if Adams does miss time, yeah, he definitely get a bump.
Yep, I have a few shares of MVS and one of Lazard as well that could actually start to benefit depending on the outcome and the health of Devontae Adams. Let's talk a little bit about this game, Hallam. Saints and the Raiders. And there are people whose matchups are hanging in the balance with no Michael Thomas. What are your expectations for Mr. Breeze tonight?
I've definitely tempered my expectations. I dropped to, projections for his number of yards and touchdowns and all. But I still think they'll be okay. I think the main beneficiaries are going to be Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook at tight end. They have Traquan Smith, who obviously will get a much bigger role. But Smith is kind of like the big play, unreliable. He's like Marquez Valdez-Scantling for the Saints. He's a similar player. Great ability, not great hands. He's a big player. It's not a lot. And Thomas, let's be honest. I mean, he had 1,000 catches last year, but he doesn't go 40 yards down the field very often. He's the 8 to 12 yard guy who just drags 3 defenders 5 more yards with him for an 18-yard catch. He's not a fly pattern, all the time kind of guy. So that's why I think Sanders, is a slot or a shorter pattern guy, I think picks up some of the slack. And I think Jared Cook, also a nice, reliable receiver guy I know that you like very much, I think also gets some extra targets.
Oh no, I don't like Jared Cook really at all, Hallam. I do not. For a second, I thought it was opposite day. I was worried about now all of us.
I was on a stream with you that you argued with Ronas about him.
No, okay, so I argued with Ronas, and this has been brought up a decent amount lately, with Ian Ronas especially. I argued with Ronas. Ronas thinks that every time I speak highly of a player drafted in the 9th round, let's just say, he thinks that I think that that's a league winner right there. And not every pick post the 8th round has to be a league winner. Sometimes safe floor guys are fine. Now, one of the things that Ronas and I argued about were Jared Cook and his reliability on touchdowns, which he was. I mean, you saw the targets drop from the Raider days to the Saints days. But I found it interesting that his ADP wasn't moving, and Ronas is like, why are you guys drafting him? What are you doing? And I said, because, Ronas, they're looking at the touchdowns. And he's like, you can't rely only on touchdowns. I'm like, you're right. But they're drafting him in the 9th and 10th round, and they're looking at overall production. That's what we were arguing about, because when I talked about, Jared Cook could be an option, because I mentioned at the time with Ronas, Emmanuel Sanders is like, he's not a good pick because Drew Brees tends to not look at that second receiver beyond Michael Thomas consistently. So I said, okay, what about Jared Cook? And that's what sparked the debate with Jared Cook.
Gotcha. So I think he's going to improve with Michael Thomas out.
Yes, for sure. And now even Kamara as well. A few more targets expect him. Let me tell you this, I'm right now ahead of my opponent in one of my leagues by about 15, 17 points, something like that. And all he has left is Kamara in a half-point PPR. I'm worried as hell that I'm going to lose. I'm thinking it's going to be that big of a night for Kamara with no Michael Thomas. I think he's going to be one of the main benefactors, of course. What about from the Raiders side? I mean, a lot of people were digging in on Josh Jacobs because they're always not active in the passing game. 4 receptions, though, I'm cool with that to start. Might not get 60 like he wants, but I'm still expecting this guy to continue to dominate, and that's why I'm so happy I have about 5 shares of him.
Yeah, and Jalen Richard is still on the team, but he's nothing that great. And let's be honest, Jacobs is the best guy out there, and was 1 week with no preseason. So, I mean, last week was weird. I definitely think he's going to be more involved in the passing game like you do. I think he's going to be one of the top 6 or 7 backs in fantasy by the year's end. I just think he's worldly talented if he can stay healthy. From the passing side, I really liked what I saw from Henry Ruggs last week. Hopefully he's healthy. And then, of course, Darren Waller is no doubt a stud as well. So, the Saints have a good defense. So I still do expect them to win even without Thomas. I still think they'll put up, 24, 28 points. And I don't know that the Raiders can put up that many points on the Saints defense. So I'm looking for the Saints to win this one by a touchdown.
I'm wondering if Bryan Edwards doesn't get targeted more than 2 or 3 times, if he's going to be the number 1 drop candidate. I'm thinking that's going to be the case.
I hope not, because I drafted him a lot at the end of the year as the reports are coming in, so I was really disappointed last week. So I'm hoping that he does see more action, but he sees Marshawn Lattimore. It's not going to be a very good night for him.
Give Ryan Hallam a follow at Fighting Chance. Give me a follow at Fence D Sports. The Fantasy Alarm family is always with you. You may have lost Saquon. So what? We're still going to get you that ring, and then you're going to have a hella great story to talk about it. The comeback story of the year could be yours when you ride with Fantasy Alarm, because we always dominate. There isn't any other option. We just win. Even